All right. Well, like I said, happy Tuesday. My name is Natalie Ibarra. I am the Communications Manager for NFCYM. If you have not heard of NFCYM because you saw our meta campaign that we were doing, then NFCYM is the National Federation for Catholic Youth Ministry. We are a national organization that seeks to support and empower those who accompany young people throughout their faith lives. So, campus ministers, parish youth ministry leaders, diocesan directors, parents as well. We are here to support you. We are a membership-based organization, so I totally invite you to consider becoming a member. And you can visit nfcym.org for more information on that. During this webinar, we definitely invite you to ask questions. The Q&A feature is available, so please feel free to drop them in there. And after Joan's presentation, we will go into that. This video is being recorded. It will be available on the NCYC website, which is ncyc.us. By the end of this week. It will be posted as a blog. And that is everything. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my coworker, Abigail, who will get us started.
Thanks, Natalie. Again, on behalf of NFCYM, I just wanted to welcome everyone to this webinar. My name is Abigail Struppa, and I'm the Event Marketing Coordinator for NFCYM. And I just wanted to begin in a prayer to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. NFCYM is consecrated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. So we'll begin in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. O most holy heart of Jesus, fountain of every blessing, I adore you, I love you, and with lively sorrow for my sins, I offer you this poor heart of mine. Make me humble, patient, pure, and wholly obedient to your will. Grant, good Jesus, that I may live in you and for you. Protect me in the midst of danger. Comfort me in my afflictions. Give me health of body, assistance in my temporal needs, your blessings on all that I do, and the grace of a holy death. Within your heart, I place my every care. In every need, let me come to you with humble trust, saying, Heart of Jesus, help me. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Today, this webinar, we have partnered with an organizational member of NFCYM, Verso Ministries. And join with Natalie and myself today is Joan Watson. And I'll let Joan introduce herself and tell us a little bit more about Verso Ministries, and then she can hop right into the presentation.
Excellent. Thank you both for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I love the work of NFCYM. Before I came to Verso, I worked in a diocese, and so I'm very well familiar with the great work of NFCYM. So let me share my screen and we can get started. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. So what we're going to talk about today is just really that importance of not wasting the tilled soil of our experience when our young people, our students go to something like NCYC, go to a retreat, go to an experience like that. How do we bring them back home? How do we support them in that time coming back home? So right now I work as the Pilgrim Formation Manager for Verso Ministries, which is a pilgrimage company out of South Bend, Indiana. And we love taking people of all ages on pilgrimage. And one thing we provide in Verso is when you go on pilgrimage with Verso, I help form your pilgrims. I work with the group leader to see, okay, are you going to do anything to get them ready? Are you going to do anything to welcome them home? And some group leaders are very equipped to do this, and other group leaders are like, we want you to do it. And so it's been a great joy to work to prepare the pilgrims' hearts and minds as they go on pilgrimage, but then also to remember that when they come back from pilgrimage, they need to unpack what they just experienced. We work a lot with dioceses and parishes, with youth groups to go to World Youth Day, for example. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today, we help diocesan leaders and parish leaders do for their students when they come back from something like World Youth Day. So I'll be referencing World Youth Day a little bit in this presentation, but it's because it's a very similar mountaintop experience than something like a big retreat, a Steubenville conference, or especially NCYC. So I'm the formation manager at Verso right now, and that's what I spend my life doing. I'm also a Catholic speaker and an author on the side. I've worked in ministry roles for almost 20 years, however. So I know your life very intimately. I trained catechists in the Diocese of Nashville, Knoxville, and Lexington for 6 years. Then I moved to the Diocese of Nashville as their diocesan director of faith formation. But then I've also led pilgrimages. So I led pilgrimages as diocesan director of faith formation in Nashville. And now, of course, in my role at Verso, I've led pilgrimages. And so I'm also coming to this with that frame of mind of those mountaintop experiences that we have, and then how do we come down from them? I also am the author of Opening the Holy Door, which is a Bible study, a companion to the Holy Door in Rome for the Jubilee that came out of Ave Maria Press, and you can find that as well. So more so, we already had our opening prayer, but I just want to kind of reflect and begin this by reflecting on the great parable of the sower. I entitled this presentation, Don't Waste the Tilled Soil, because if you remember in that beautiful parable that Christ gives us, he shows us there are different types of soil that the seed can fall on. And in our work as campus ministers, as youth leaders, as leaders of apostolates, as leaders of students, we have to think of, how do I till the soil of their hearts? That question's probably constantly in your heart in ministry work. And there's so many different types of people in front of you daily, your students, your kids, but also your coworkers, your neighbors, strangers. And when we spread the seed of God's word, as we see in that parable of the sower, that seed's going to fall on lots of different soil. And a lot of times I'm spreading the seed. Sometimes I'm simply prepping the soil for other people to spread the seed. And that's something in our ministry work we have to remember, that we might be simply prepping the soil of hearts so that someone else later can come spread that seed. And we might definitely never see that seed sprout. And that can be really difficult for us in leadership. But one thing that something like NCYC, something like a pilgrimage, something like a retreat can do is begin to till that soil of the heart in a really real way. But then at some point, then I need to take advantage of that tilled soil. Don't waste that tilled soil. And so when we look at how do we receive somebody coming back, how do we support someone coming back from an experience like a retreat or NCYC, we have to say, okay, why do I even have to think about that? Because if you don't think about how to receive them back, you're wasting the tilled soil. You know, you send a student to NCYC and they have an amazing experience in front of adoration. They meet people from across the country. They hear a talk. They do things that you can't possibly do in a weekend by yourself. And you're taking advantage of an event like NCYC to till that soil. Don't waste that soil. Welcome them back and support them. So, you know, when we talk about this with our group leaders who are going on pilgrimage, we talk about this with the group leaders months before they go on pilgrimage. And a lot of times they're thinking, this is the last thing on my mind before I go to pilgrimage. I have to be thinking about all these different logistics. Why are you talking about something that's going to happen after? So you might be thinking, well, my kids aren't even on retreat yet. My kids aren't even at NCYC yet. Why are we talking about this now? I have a million other things on my mind. But if you don't think ahead of time about how to receive your students back, you're going to miss those opportunities. You're also going to miss opportunities that are going to happen when you're at the event. So if you get to accompany your students to NCYC, be thinking about ways you're going to receive them back. Why? Because in that event, you can be beginning to ask questions. What are you hearing the Lord say? What experiences are you having? Asking those probing questions. Why did you come? And you can help till the soil in the moment. So the time is going to pass by very quickly when you get back from NCYC. Start thinking about how to receive them back now so that you're ready to receive them back when it's time to receive them back. Okay. This is often where we miss in our preparation. We often miss the planning of the receiving back. How do I support them when they've come back from an experience? You know, so it might think, oh, it's way too early to be thinking about this. No, don't miss those opportunities. We can't be preparing them for going if we're not really also thinking about how to prepare, how to receive them home. So many of us have had this experience where we've had this mountaintop moment in faith, whether it's a retreat or a pilgrimage. And then when we come home, that zeal disappears. We go back to everyday life. Maybe I even forget the answers to my prayers. Maybe I forget the graces that I received on the weekend. Maybe I received the consolation that the Lord had for me. I had a priest friend one time who actually lamented that kids would go off to NCYC. He dreaded it. Why? Because they would come back full of zeal and they'd want to do stuff. and he was tired. And he was like, I can't do I don't know what to do. They come back all zealous. And now what do we do for them? And it grieves me when people have that experience because, yes, they're coming back with zeal. They're coming back pumped. Let's use it. Let's use it and funnel it and not let that fire die. So we can't allow things like pilgrimage, things like NCYC, things like World Youth Day be an isolated experience. It's going to be a parachute moment. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase, but these moments are kind of what we call parachute moments. And I use that phrase because as a Catholic speaker, I go into parishes now, and I'm not working in the nitty gritty every day at the parish. I'm coming in and I'm parachuting down. And I get to come in full of zeal, full of life, full of excitement, and pump everybody up and then leave. And you all are doing the hard work of nurturing that, right? So I come light a fire as a Catholic speaker. Right now I'm going around to parishes talking about the Jubilee year and how we live the Jubilee year as people who can't go to Rome, maybe, who can't go on pilgrimage. And so I'm coming into a parish and I'm lighting this fire in this one-day event about the Jubilee. And then I leave. And I leave the DRE and the youth minister and the director of faith formation, the director of evangelization, and the pastor to do the hard work of now taking that fire and doing something with it. But you can't allow these moments to be isolated experience. That requires intentionality, that requires forward thinking to plan of how to receive them home. I love this quote. There's a Pilgrim Leaders Guide that came out for World Youth Day 2023 in Lisbon. And I'm going to reference it a few times because it's still online. You can still access it. They're going to put the link in the chat to this Leaders Guide. So it's a Leaders Guide from the USCCB for World Youth Day. But there's some real jewels in that. Even though it's for World Youth Day, it's applicable to us today. And I love this quote. World Youth Day, we could also say NCYC or the retreat. Plug in your mountaintop experience here, right? It's but a stop on the journey from heaven that began at baptism. For some pilgrims, the journey of faith has been a steady one. For others, it's newly awakened by World Youth Day. And I love that. You're going to have different kids at different moments in their journey. They're all at different moments. Why? Because our whole lives are a pilgrimage. Our whole lives are a journey. And everybody's going to be at a slightly different point when they hit this mountaintop experience of NCYC. And now we receive them coming home, coming down from that mountain. And where are they? Where are they now? You know, this mountaintop experience is a transfiguration moment, right? The apostles go up with Jesus and they're living that beauty of the transfiguration, right? He's glorified. They're like, let's stay on the mountain. You're going to have kids that go to NCYC and say, let's stay. Like, why wouldn't I want to be here? It's great music. It's great preaching. It's Eucharistic adoration. It's kids on fire. Like, I don't want to go home to my parish, right? You're going to have those kids that want to stay. But Jesus had to come down the mountain and the apostles had to come down the mountain. Why? Because they had to continue their mission. They had to continue the mission for which they were sent. They come down the mountain to face suffering, but it doesn't mean that God isn't with them. Jesus comes down the mount. Why? Because he has to fulfill his mission and the Lord is still with him, right? The Father's still with him. The apostles don't come down the mountain alone. They come down with Jesus. They come down with the Father. And so how can we accompany our pilgrims as they come down that mountain to go back into everyday life? So coming down the mountain can be sad. It can be frustrating. It can be even just emotionless, where you just kind of forget what happened. Or it can be there's can be this time of renewed zeal, renewed love, renewed impetus towards mission. And that's what we have to capture. How do we get the second? You're not going to get that second unless you have a plan in place to receive them back. It's not just going to happen on its own. Why? Because the world is going to intervene. Monotony is going to intervene. Daily life is going to intervene. And so we have to have a plan to receive them back. Okay. So we always talk about this at Verso with the pilgrimage. You know, you go on this pilgrimage and you end your pilgrimage and you've made it. No, the end of the pilgrimage is just the beginning, because we're on this pilgrimage of life. I have a book coming out with Emmaus Road later this year about the pilgrimage of life, about pilgrimage, that we all go on pilgrimage every day. And so the graces we receive on a physical pilgrimage, whether that's to Rome or whether that's to Indianapolis or whether that's to California, that's just the beginning of the rest of our pilgrimage. Okay. So I want to give you some ideas and resources for how to receive. We see that it's important and we see we need to do it. And it's very easy to let it slide because it's hard to prepare for something like a retreat. It's hard to prepare for a pilgrimage. It's very easy to let the welcome home, the receiving back, slide. So here's some ideas and resources to help them come down, because you got to accompany them. Christ is going to accompany them. The Father and the Spirit, Trinity is going to accompany them, but you got to accompany them too. Okay. So how do we take them? How do we bring them home? I have three. You got to help them do three things. You've got to accompany them in three ways. When they come home from NCYC, when they come home from this mountaintop experience, you've got to help them process. Okay. You have to accompany them to help them see, where was the Lord at work? And this is something you can begin doing when you're there. In those times of sitting around and waiting for the next activity, start to ask them questions. Where do you see God moving? You know, I think a lot of us aren't used to naming where we see the Lord at work in our life. And that's a challenge for all of us. You know, you hear you have to count your blessings. There's a reason we say that. You got to count your blessings, because if you don't acknowledge them, you begin to not even see them. I went to confession one time, and that's what the priest gave me as my penance. He said, you know, you've named your sins and you've discerned the sins, you've examined your conscience. Go count your blessings. And I was like, Father, can you give me a time limit? Because, you know, I got to get to work. And if I count all my blessings, I'll be here for the rest of my life. Because when you start realizing what the Lord does, you realize the fact that I woke up was a blessing. The fact that my car worked to get me to confession was a blessing. The fact that I got to go to confession was a blessing. Oh, wait, the fact that I became Catholic is a blessing. The fact that my parents raised me Catholic is a blessing, right? Like, you can't stop. It's the same when you see the Lord moving. If you don't name it, you don't always see it. And so help the kids name it. Help the kids see, how is God at work? Even if our bus broke down on the way to NCYC, let's name it. How did the Lord work in that? Okay. So there's actually questions in that USCCB resource that I referenced that we're going to put in the chat. There are actually questions on page 58 that, again, are geared toward World Youth Day, but can very easily be tweaked for your mountaintop experience. To start asking the kids to start processing this. So there's a lot of different ways you can do that. The World Youth Day Guide also has some activities to help them begin to process in like a group activity setting, but we got to help them process. I'm also providing for you a sample resource that we give our pilgrims. We call it an e-retreat. The link will be in the chat. And we provide 6 e-retreats. If you go on pilgrimage with Verso, you get 4 e-retreats before you leave, and you get 2 when you get back. And the purpose of these e-retreats are to be printed off and taken to the chapel, taken to a quiet place where you can kind of go through these exercises with the Lord. So e-retreat 5 that we're providing as a sample in the chat is something we send to our pilgrims when they come back. I think I gave the Holy Land one as an example. How do we process this experience? What did I see? What did I hear? What did I smell? Really processing these moments, because it will be a blur. It'll be a complete blur, and we'll forget the people we met. We'll forget the answers to our prayers. We'll forget these moments unless we process them. I always encourage people to journal when they're on pilgrimage for this purpose. So that resource is available to you as well. Maybe it'll help you guide a group discussion as you're coming home, to help them really process what they saw. It'll be very easy for them to gloss over these details unless you accompany them in this process, okay? The second thing you want to do is to help them share. You want to encourage them to tell their story. How do you answer that question? How is NCYC? You know, I didn't really think about this until I went to World Youth Day, and I was with a great chaplain, a great priest, who sat down with his kids and said, you need to write an elevator speech. You need to write an elevator speech that says, how was World Youth Day? you need to have a 3-minute answer to that question, maybe a 2-minute answer to that question that helps tell your story. Why? Because the grace of this trip was not given to you for you alone. The grace of this trip was given to you to share it with others. And if you get asked, how was World Youth Day? How was NCYC? And you haven't thought about it, and you haven't developed your elevator speech, you're going to be like, it was great. And you've lost the opportunity. You've lost the opportunity to share how the Lord worked and maybe work something in that person's heart. And so he had them write elevator speeches about what World Youth Day was to them, what it meant to them, so that then they could share it. So that when they were asked, how's World Youth Day? They were able to catechize, they were able to evangelize, they were able to witness to the Lord's work in that. But that's not just going to come off your students. No, that's just not going to come out of their heads. They're going to have to prep that. Okay. I've given you a resource, again, a Verso resource that's in the chat for how to tell your story. And this resource walks them through actually processing and then telling their story. Now I would challenge, help them formulate their story, help them tell their story, and then give them ways to tell it. Maybe you have a parish event. If it's something like a big event like World Youth Day, or maybe even NCYC, maybe they fundraise for this. You have a parish event welcoming them home that they can tell this experience to their donors, to their family, to their friends. Maybe they write stories to include in a parish newsletter. Maybe they make a special handout. That's what this parish did for World Youth Day. They made this beautiful booklet that they gave to their donors that had everybody's little elevator speeches, and it was beautiful. Writing to donors, writing to people, thanking them, but sharing the story. Now, one caution you want to watch against is those who didn't go, whether it's to NCYC, on a pilgrimage. You don't want those people to feel less than. You don't want them to feel inadequate because they didn't go. And so you want to work with your kids to figure out, how do I form my story that I don't make others feel less than? Because that's not the purpose. The purpose is to share, not to belittle, not to be proud about it, because this wasn't you that did the work, actually. It was the Lord doing the work in you and through you. So help them process, help them share, and finally help them commit. Be ready to give them an outlet for that zeal. Provide opportunities for them to take that zeal, to take that fire. What do we do now? NCYC should not just be an isolated event, but should send them out. Now, it might not be a matter of making new things. I'm not saying that all of a sudden you need to come up with all these new activities. Maybe you just need to introduce them to things that are already happening in your church. There's sometimes a divide between the youth, the young adults, and the rest of the parish. Like, why aren't the youth and the young adults invited to come to parish activities like Bible studies and small groups? Right? So maybe you just have a ministry fair where you introduce the young people to, like, you got this gift, now let's go be part of the parish. So it might not be even a new event. It might just be introducing them to ways they can channel this energy. Don't assume they know what's available to them. Maybe you do a group service project together. Maybe it's just a matter of saying, you really liked adoration at NCYC. Did you know that we have adoration at the church on Good Friday, on First Fridays? Did you know that we have adoration, a perpetual adoration chapel at a parish next door? Maybe it's a matter of also seeing what's available throughout the community and plugging them in. So help them process the experience, help them share the experience, but then help them commit to ministry, to serve. The Joy of the Call is a section in that same USCCB resource that I've already referenced. That USCCB resource on page 67 has examples of a service, of an activity to do to help them think about, what am I going to do now? And so it's an example of like a prayer service that you can do with people, with the kids, to help them discern what's next. Again, this is a quote from World Youth Day about World Youth Day, but I think it's really easy to plug in any mountaintop experience, whether that's a retreat, whether that's NCYC. Plug that in for World Youth Day. Pope Francis, at the end of World Youth Day in Krakow in 2016, said, "We can say that World Youth Day begins today and continues tomorrow. In your homes, since that is where Jesus wants to meet you from now on, right? Go home, go down the mountain. Your family needs you, right? The Lord doesn't want to remain in this beautiful city or in cherished memories alone. He wants to enter your home, to dwell in your daily lives, in your studies, your first years of work, your friendships and affections, your hopes and your dreams. How greatly he desires that you bring all this to him in prayer. Right? So how can we prayerfully process this experience and then return to him in prayer? Right? How much he hopes that in all the contacts and chats of each day, pride of place be given to the golden thread of prayer. How much he wants his word to be able to speak to you day after day so that you can make his gospel your own, so that it can serve as a compass of you, for you on the highway of life. I think that final thing is the most important thing. Help them process, help them share, and help them pray. So process, share, commit, and help them pray. Help them pray, help them turn to the Lord, ask those questions. What do you want from me? Maybe in big things like vocationally, but maybe just in small ways. How do you want me to be your instrument? So they're going to have profound moments of prayer at NCYC. They're going to have profound moments of prayer at a retreat. How do I then incorporate that in my daily life? It's going to look different, right? Prayer is going to look different at a retreat as it is on a Monday morning when I'm going to school or to work. But help them pray, help them tap into that lifeblood of the church in the reception of the sacraments in prayer. So as they process what they've been through, they don't have to leave it all behind. They share it with others and they implement those prayer practices, that daily prayer, so that they don't forget the beauty of what they experienced. I know we're going to have time for questions. I want to, before we do that, I just want to throw this up on the slide on the screen, and then we can open it up for questions. But don't hesitate to reach out. Verso, so that's the Verso pilgrimage number and our email address. If you're interested in World Youth Day, if you're interested in going on pilgrimage, we lead a lot of young adult and youth pilgrimages. We try to make it as possible as possible as it can be for people to take their youth groups on pilgrimage. And so we would love to connect with you all to figure out how to make something like World Youth Day or even Rome possible. And then that's my direct email. I'd be happy to connect with anybody on more of these things, of how to welcome people home, how to prepare people on pilgrimage, all of that good stuff. So I hope this was helpful, and I am completely open to questions.
So we did have Laura say, nothing like collecting donations or even pilgrimages have been done with my religious ed group. So I'll be the first. I think I need new ideas on how to even start. If you have resources for that, I would love that.
Yeah. So if you're looking to start like doing a pilgrimage, we also have a fundraising kit that we share ideas, because so many the people we do work with are in youth ministry, and like, okay, my kids can't afford to go to South Korea, right? So we work with a lot of groups, and we had one group in Southern Indiana that fundraised their entire trip for all their people to Lisbon. And it was so beautiful, because fundraising opportunities also provide that time for the participants to bond before they even go to something like World Youth Day, where they're working together really hard to make this happen. So Verso works a lot with groups that might not have fundraising capabilities, and we help. We can't raise the money for you, but we definitely have ideas and can help you. So feel free to reach out to me directly, Laura.
Can you share more info for getting our youth group to World Youth Day?
Sure. So I would recommend. So the dates have not been announced. We know it's in the summer of 2027. The Vatican has announced they're waiting to announce the actual dates until the Jubilee of Youth, of young people, which is happening this summer in Rome, happens. So, but we are already starting to plan. Again, we took 1,100 kids to World Youth Day in Lisbon. So we have already been to South Korea. We went on a pilgrimage to South Korea last year before we even knew that World Youth Day was going to be in South Korea. So we're psyched. We're so excited to bring the Church of South Korea to everyone. So if you reach out to Verso, either at hello or the Joan at Verso Ministries, we can start getting you going. At versoministries.com/WYD, I had to think about that, is also our kind of landing page for World Youth Day. And as soon as we get the dates, but even before we have the dates, we're already starting groups to talk about, okay, how can we help you make this a reality? So, and that includes things like the youth leader goes for free, right? Like if you get 10 people to go with you, come on, you're going to South Korea for free. So there's lots of advantages to bringing your parish. But no group's too small for us, no group's too big. We've done it all. So we would love to take you to Seoul.
And I just dropped the 2 links for Verso Ministries, the website as a whole, and then the World Youth Day one as well. Somebody asked, is Verso a membership? And will you all have a booth at NCYC? Putting you on the spot.
So we are not a membership. We're a ministry. We're a company. So we're a ministry that puts on pilgrimages. So so anybody can come on pilgrimage with us as an individual. Most of our trips are open. I'm going to Our Lady Guadalupe in November. Would love everyone to go with me. So a lot of our trips are open, but then we also do trips for group leaders to plan your trip for your specific group. So we do a little of both, and we will have a booth at NCYC. We're really excited about that.
So if you're coming,
So
make sure you stop by and say hi. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of other great advice that you all are sharing in the chat. So thank you guys. I see somebody here saying that they are looking to start a youth group at the same time of them going to NCYC. Is this good timing? Yes. If I can just speak a little bit on that, I would say like find who those motivators and who those shakers are within the young people. And word of mouth is going to be what, again, we saw the disciples do that. They went off and spread the word. The young people will do the same thing. And then that on its own is kind of how a grassroots youth ministry starts within your parish. So just empower them, let them know that they have a voice, let them speak, make sure you listen, and then make sure you like really build on like that team mindset when it comes to building that youth group.
Yeah,
Nice.
talk about an awesome way to like prepare, like get that's the mission then you're setting them out to, right? Like you're coming down from this mountain, they're on fire, and you take advantage of that tilled soil to say, hey, let's do this more often and invite your friends and you can see firsthand what an encounter with Christ does. So that would be the perfect way to come down from the mountain, is to say, let's do this more often, and let's start a youth group,
There's another question that came in. When you do pilgrimages to Rome or World Youth Day, what age youth do you bring? I know people have different opinions on this.
Yeah. So it varies. It's interesting. So the word youth in Europe means usually a young adult. And so World Youth Day primarily is geared toward young adults. We always laugh around here because only in the church are you youth from age 21 to 35, right? Like the world would be like, really? 35-year-old youth? Maybe we're all young at heart. But so it's a little confusing sometimes, but we do take high school groups, and there are a lot of, I think World Youth Day is a little bit more geared toward a mature, so like young adults or a mature high schooler. But I have to admit, we took a 2-year-old to World Youth Day because somebody brought their baby. So we bring all ages to World Youth Day. So it depends on your group and what you think, your teens can handle. But we do bring high schoolers to World Youth Day, even though I think the event itself is more geared toward the young adult. That's what youth technically means in Europe. That's one of the reasons the Jubilee for Youth this summer, we as Verso have been referring to it as the Jubilee of Young People, because it is geared towards more of that young adult crowd, whereas the Jubilee for Teenagers was geared toward high schoolers. But again, we take high schoolers, and so it's up to the group leader to discern, are my high schoolers ready to go to Seoul and to have this international experience.
So I think Abby was going to share a little bit on what NCYC is, and then we will close out shortly after that.
Yes. So NCYC is a powerful 3-day experience of community evangelization and service geared towards Catholic teens and their adult chaperones. I personally, before working for NFCYM, have attended 2 NCYCs. It is the reason why I'm still Catholic. It's the reason why I wanted to go into Catholic ministry after college. It's why I attended a Catholic university. My dad, who was ordained a deacon in this past August, 2024, would say that it is the reason he came back to the church and the reason he's a deacon today. So NCYC is close to my heart. And so the 2025 theme, Yo So I Am, Yo Soy, it's going to reflect on the time that God spoke and appeared through the burning bush to Moses, and explore how the sacraments are a living story of God's love, uniting him to us through the sacraments and through the church. At NCYC, you can expect inspiring speakers, mass adoration, worship, interactive exhibits, and community from all over the nation. If you're interested in coming to NCYC, and I really hope that you are, you can visit ncyc.us. I'll have Natalie, or I'll put in the chat once I'm done, my email. If you would like to reach out personally, I would love to speak with you if you want some more information or need anything regarding NCYC. We would really love for you to join us. It's in Indianapolis in November, the 20th through the 22nd. So yeah, I just really hope that NCYC is on your bucket list. It should be. It's a really great experience just to bring your high school aged youth, your youth groups, your high school teens to NCYC, and NFCYM would just really love to have you guys there for the weekend. Yeah, back to you, Natalie.
Thank you. I think there's a question about youth ambassadors. That opens up in the summer. And so those are the ones that are helping, do opening prayer or just do the bio for the speaker doing the breakout. So you can expect to see emails, socials, and then again, information up on the website about end of June, early July. So thank you. So yeah, no problem. One final thing is we are giving away a free NCYC pass to somebody that is here. So in the past, we went through like the registration list. We picked a random number and then that's who got it. But I'm going to look at who is still here because I saw some numbers drop off. So if you're here, you are very lucky. So let's see, I'm going to just literally close my eyes, scroll a little bit, and we've got Pam Heel. If you are here, I will email you your free pass. So congratulations, Pam. All right. So thank you all so much again for joining us. Thank you, Joan. That was really, really good. And thank you, Abby, for also leading us in prayer and starting us off. So thank you all so much. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.